guys, today I'm going to be going through my top 10 folk albums of all time. Folk music is a genre that is often associated with being music for the people. Over the last 150 years, there has been lots of movements which have had folk music as the backdrop of their demonstration or particular movement. It brings with it a lot of tradition, and it brings with it a lot of I want to say polarizing things. And in the history of folk music, lots of polarizing things have happened because, like any kind of genre that is steeped in traditions, going against traditions or trying to advance them in any way, ruffles feathers of purists and gatekeepers. And some of the releases I'm going to discuss in this video have definitely done that. They've definitely disrupted the status quo of the form of this music, and I would say mostly for the betterment of it, but that is also up to the interpretation of the individual. Some of these releases are releases not by primarily folk artists as well, so there's that as well. If you're looking for anything that is strictly to do with Woody Guthrie or Phil Ochs or Joan Baez or things like that, unfortunately that sort of stuff won't be in this list. This list does focus primarily on the use of the instruments and the sound as well as lyrics and folk, but it's not a list that ranks the most influential or more politically charged folk singers like Pete Seeger or like Woody Guthrie, things like that. These are just what to my ears are the best folk albums. So I will start off with number 10, and number 10 is an album by not really a folk artist. He is somebody who has traversed many genres and would say traversing genres is a feature of his music, and that is Beck with Sea Change. Now, this album came out in 2002, and this saw Beck stripping everything down to bare elements of his music. So up until this time, he was experimenting with everything from soul, hip-hop, jazz, folk, punk rock. Everything was basically in the blender, and nothing was off limits for Beck, really. He had like albums like Odelay and Mellow Gold. Midnight Vultures was his funk explorations in that, but he pairs everything back on this album. And what you have here is a gorgeous set of songs here, which begins with The Golden Age, which sets the tone for the album. It is a very, very laid-back album, lots of acoustic guitars, and there are orchestral instrumentation in this. This is a Nigel Godrich production, so you will know him from his production work with Radiohead, so it's very atmospheric as well. But this is a really, really great record. The lyrics and the music, it has a melancholy vibe to it, but it's an essential listen, I think, for any Beck fan or anybody that likes sort of laid-back acoustic music. Number 9, I have... I don't have a copy. Do I have a copy of this? I have it somewhere. That's okay. It doesn't matter. It's I See a Darkness by Bonnie Prince Billy. Now, Bonnie Prince Billy, also known as William Oldham, goes under that pseudonym Bonnie Prince Billy for his solo work. He's been around for the better part of 25, 26 years, making wonderful indie rock records, but most of his music is steeped in folk tradition, and it is a really, really good album. There's some great cuts on there. I highly recommend checking that out if you are a fan of sort of Father John Misty and stuff like that, because he was the precursor to that sort of stuff coming out, and I highly recommend him. Number 8, we have Richard and Linda Thompson. I Want to See the Bright Lights Tonight. Now, this is the debut album from husband and wife folk rock duo that was released in the early 70s. And what we have on this album is their sound was part of what was called the second British folk folk movement, I guess they call it. And what we have on here is a superb selection of tracks with Richard and Linda sometimes harmonising with each other, but they alternate in taking the lead vocals on the tracks, which is quite good. And it starts with When I Get Across the Border, which is brilliant. And the last minute of that track is some of the best folk instrumentation I've ever heard on a record. It's unbelievable. Also, the title track, I Want to See the Bright Lights Tonight, Where the Drunkards Roll. Yeah, it's Calgary Cross. You know, it has some absolute classics on it, so I highly recommend that. Number 7 I have is a bit of a Rate Your Music Core selection here that I've only recently found out about in the last couple of years. And that is a collaboration project of 2 singer-songwriters that came out in the early 80s. And it's from David Kaufman and Eric Kabua, and it's called Songs from Suicide Bridge. And this is a really interesting release in that a lot of people sort of know about it now because we're in the age of the internet where more obscure recordings are being released on streaming, and we're getting to experience these releases for the first time without having to pay $600 for a vinyl copy of it, you know, being so rare. So with this album, what we have is a similar thing to what Richard and Linda Thompson are doing, although they're not, you know, related, but these 2 guys are alternating lead vocals on each song. And the mood of it is often forlorn, but there is a catharsis to the tracks here that doesn't go unnoticed to any of the listeners listening to it. The songwriting is great, and also the guitars are great because they're both guitarists too. So there's like dueling guitar parts on this album, which are really, really interesting as well, which give it extra texture. But yeah, some of the songs are absolutely devastating, but it is a really rewarding listen for anybody who wants to get into that. I highly recommend it. Just missing out on the top 5 is The Microphones with the Glow Part 2. Now, this again is a pseudonym for a solo artist called, and I'll say his name wrong here probably, but Phil Ephraim. He also goes by the name of Mount Airy as well these days for his solo projects. But The Glow Part 2 was the album that put him on the map, and critically is lauded as one of the best albums of the early 2000s. And you can see why. He's blending folk with electronic beats and odd time signatures and multi-part suites on his albums. and this is where he does it best. And there's some interesting recording things going on here where you sort of go, how did he get that sound, you know, on it? It's absolutely brilliant, and from top to bottom, it's an absolute classic. And now what we have with this 5, they're all like stone cold classics, really. These are some of the best in my view. And yeah, of the genre, excuse me, I think these are the best. And the first one I'm going to talk about is at number 5, and that is Damien Rice, number 9. Or it's just called 9. Okay. Now, this was a follow-up to the wildly successful debut album. I think it's called O. Okay, and that had The Blower's Daughter on it, which was a big hit for him, and also Cannonball. But to follow up an album like that with 9 is no easy feat, because that debut album was quite good too. But this is actually, this is strides above this. And when we're talking about folk music and acoustic music, some of the illustrations in there, there's no better place to go than something like this, because it's all out on the table. I think with this, it's very, very personal. Not that his debut album wasn't either, but this one here is really digging deep into things that are going on, whether that's being the songwriting being autobiographical or about characters that he's coming up with. I mean, that doesn't matter. All we know is that there's songs on here like 9 Crimes, which is the opening track, which is brilliant. Then you've got Elephant, Rootless Tree, Dogs, which is a great track. The one that really sticks out to me, which is unlike the rest of the album, it actually really does stick out like a sore thumb, but it deserves its place in there, is the 7th track called Me, My Yoke and I. Okay, which follows this ascending coda where the lyrics are kind of like, he's like, my drum, gonna make ya, my drum, gonna make ya, my fall, and it keeps on going higher and higher and higher until it like reaches this explosion with the full band. And it's it's almost grungy, and you wouldn't think that you would put that amongst a selection of sort of more laid back sounding songs, but it does work. And then the last 2 tracks, Accidental Babies and Sleep Don't Weep, are some of the best songs ever written in my view. And Damien Rice has not been able to do anything that touches this, really, I don't think, anyway. Now, number 4. At number 4, we have The Hissing of Summer Lawns by Joni Mitchell. Now, Joni Mitchell, music legend, is still with us, and had recently done a public performance. I think that was the Grammys, and that was brilliant. But she is a songwriting maverick, and in the field of folk music, she's very important, in that she has talked about things that were taboo before. There's lots of songs that she has written that are politically driven, but there's lots of songs that are very personal as well, and also tackle subjects that a lot of people at the time weren't tackling. With the hissing of summer lawns, what Joni Mitchell has been able to do is start introducing jazz element into her music and using jazz musicians. And it really starts with here, where she does it, and you've got tracks like The Jungle Line, which are incorporating, like almost African beats in their African percussion. You've got Shadows and Light, which is foreshadowing stuff like Frou Frou and Laurie Anderson and that, with its call and response, real synthetic, like choral vocal lines. You've got the title track as well, Hissing of Summer Lawns. She would make more folky sounding music, but again, it's not so much here because of that. It's because it's moving the genre forward, and it's a very important record. One of Prince's favourite albums, actually, from what I hear. Now we're down to the last three, and the third one I have here is an absolute epic, and I've got it here. And it is Have One on Me by Joanna Newsom. The epic triple album from her, classic songwriter, singer-songwriter, harpist. Just absolutely brilliant. I mean, the box set. Well, it's not a box set, it's the standard edition of the album, but it's just brilliant, with each album in here, each disc. It's booklet there, but yeah, just absolutely brilliant. What she's able to do is bring the harp into folk music in a way that is almost neoclassical and jazzy at the same time. But then when she does this, what she's also able to accomplish is make the songs accessible as well on here. And it's so hard to do something like that and make it palatable for audiences, And a lot of people would probably pick the other one that she did, called YS or EASE, I think it's called. She's got sort of the impressionistic painting of her on the front. But this one here is the one. This is her defining statement. Have One on Me is brilliant. It's it's the epic on here. Baby Birch, On a Good Day, Soft as Chalk, Esme. What happens here is you have a triple album that's split up, and it's better for being split up by disc here. You can listen to one disc one day and then swap it out and listen to another one. You could listen to it the whole way through if you want to as well, because it's brilliant. It does not suffer from being the length that it is. And many other artists were taking note of this. You would see Julia Holter and people like that, Hemlock Springs, being heavily influenced by Joanna Newsom's music. And she will continue to do that because she was still active in the music industry. And there's not much else to say for that. That's a must listen, that one. And then at number 2, we have the second album from Fleet Foxes, Helplessness Blues, at number 2. And this was also similar to Damien Rice's 9, is an album which was the second album following up a really well-received debut album, and actually was better than the debut album. And what we have here is, again, just the advancement of folk rock coming in to the, we're about to get into the 2010s here. I think it was released When did it come out? Oh, it was the 2011 it came out. But it was nominated for Best Folk Album at the Grammys, and didn't win for whatever reason. I don't know why it didn't win, because that's ridiculous. But you've got tracks like Montezuma, Simsalabim, which is brilliant, Helplessness Blues, and then my favourite, Someone You'd Admire, which is absolutely stunning song. And they are a incredibly significant and consistent band in folk rock circles, and I cannot recommend it enough for anybody interested in that sort of stuff. So before I get to the number one, I want to make some honourable mentions to a few albums. One of them would be Fairport Convention. Album is 9, same as the Damien Rice one. It's just called 9. The Grizzly Bear release, Yellow House. I'd like to mention that one, which is very good. I'd also like to mention another Joni Mitchell album, which is Blue, which people will almost universally put above The Hissing of Summer Lawns, but I think that for me, The Hissing of Summer Lawns is much better. And I think that's it for honourable mentions. So with the top one here, which is at number 1, is an iconic artist that is a Nobel Prize winner. He is the epitome of the classic modern songwriter, or singer-songwriter. And it is Bob Dylan, Bringing It All Back Home is the one that I've picked here. And why would I pick this, you might ask? Because half of this album is rock. Side 1 is pretty much full of, tracks that have electric instruments and things like that. You've got Subterranean Homesick Blues, Maggie's Farm, Outlaw Blues, Bob Dylan's 115th Dream. But an interesting thing does happen here, and coinciding around the time where the Newport Folk Festival, basically Bob Dylan decided that he wanted to plug in and play electric guitar, which was to much of the dismay of the really conservative folk audience. And he was getting booed, and they wanted to cut power to the mixing desk and all sorts of stuff, and get him off and all this sort of thing. And so this is I don't know whether this is before or after the Newport Folk Festival thing, but an interesting thing happens here is he takes lyrics, folk lyrics, which were traditionally about socio-political things going on in the US, whether it be the war, the Black Civil Rights Movement, things about union workers, unemployment, all these sorts of things. And what he does is he turns his focus away from the political, and he goes into the surreal, and he enters into a mode of songwriting that a lot of people have often analysed but never understood. And so what happens is you get a bunch of the electric songs on side 1, and then what happens is you get what you think would appease the fans here. When they flip the record over, it's an acoustic guitar and harmonica, the classic Bob Dylan mode. However, when you start listening to the tracks, what you start realising is a lot of these lyrics are very esoteric and absurd. They have a nonsensical vibe to them. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. Take me upon your magic swirling ship. My senses have been stripped. You know, he starts to play with words. He starts actually becoming the poet that he would later become. And in doing this, what he does is he brings folk forward. He brings it forward. Some would argue that he became a rock and roll artist, but he was never really wanting to be defined as any kind of artist. He didn't want to be a protest singer. He didn't want to be a rock and roll artist. In his words, he wanted to be a song and dance man. He might have said that tongue-in-cheek, but he didn't want to be defined by a genre. And of course, what came before, you know, the releases before this was the Freewheelin' Bob Dylan, which had the iconic songs like Blowin' in the Wind and Girl from the Northern Country and Masters of War and songs like that, which are much more folky sounding. However, I think that this is an important folk record because it did move that genre forward, because it was actually stuck in that period. It was stuck in a very defined idea of what folk music could be. And without this, you don't get the Byrds, you don't get Fairport Convention, you don't get the other guys on this list, Richard and Linda Thompson, you don't get Fleet Foxes, you don't get any of that without this. So there we have it. That's the top 10, or my top 10 folk albums of all time. Let us know what you think in the comments, and I will see you soon. I will be uploading more regularly from now on, and I hope you take care.